Today on Dr. Phil.
The Church of Wells were accused of kidnapping Catherine Grove.
They believe their daughter was brainwashed.
I want to be here at the church.
Her eyes started shaking, vibrating back and forth.
We know that our daughter has tried to escape at least 4 times.
The police body cam footage.
I just trying to get right somewhere.
What goes on
The wives are not allowed to walk beside the husbands.
behind closed doors.
You think there was sleep deprivation with you?
Yes.
Tell me about this shed. At night, you could hear them yelling at whoever they had in the shed. They deny any wrongdoing. Have you seen Catherine? I have. It's like you're no longer talking to a person, but more kind of like a zombie.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
This is a safe place to talk about hard things.
Stand by. I'll count you down.
I'll try to be an emotional compass and point you in the right direction.
5, 4.
I am not giving up on you.
Yesterday, we had an exclusive interview with a man who claims he was drugged by a religious group called the Church of Wells, and that he was lucky to get out of there. Here's what's happened so far.
A religious group in one small Texas town has residents there concerned.
It's a church some believe is really a cult. Its members dangerous.
Families searching for their sons and daughters say they are being held against their will.
Jordan went missing on Halloween night of 2016.
There were about 30 so members of the Church of Wells, street evangelizing as well, and he ended up meeting them.
So obviously you call him, right? What happens when you ring his phone?
Nothing. Texting, calling, nothing. He was not to be found.
I'm like in a panic, like, you know, I thought my brother was dead.
I am convinced that I was drugged in my time at the Church of Wells. One of the infant girls, she's crying, her mom isn't there. Some of the men of the Church of Wells begin to preach to the baby that you're learning patience. This is making you closer to God. I would have had to have been on drugs to be okay with that situation.
You were drug tested and found 2 drugs, and were you on either of those drugs before you went to the Church of Wells?
None.
He doesn't even take aspirin.
You've preached a false gospel that will not save your wife. It will not save your children, Matt.
Describe what's going on there.
It's a guy in a cult doing cult stuff.
This seems very aggressive.
It is.
When you got there, how did he look?
There was like a haze over his eyes. He looked bizarre. They just like stared at us. And then they step around us and walk over to Jordan and stand right next to him like they're protecting him from us.
People go there and are not heard from again. It was absolutely a miracle that I'm here to talk to you today.
Today, we're talking to 2 parents who claim their daughter is brainwashed and trapped in the Church of Wells. Take a look.
27-year-old Catherine Grove had it all, a devout and loving Christian family and a promising career in nursing. But she disappeared from her Northwest Arkansas home.
The Church of Wells controversy began when they were accused of kidnapping Catherine Grove, an Arkansas girl. Her family believes she has been brainwashed by this organization and is still missing.
5 days later, Catherine finally called from a town 380 miles away. Catherine said she was with the Church of Wells. Her parents asked locals for directions.
They said, "Oh, you're here looking for the cult."
The Groves knocked on the door of this house owned by the Church of Wells.
Their first words were, "Mr. and Mrs. Grove, we fear you're going to kidnap your daughter from us."
The Groves say when they finally saw Catherine after 4 hours of pleading, she looked to have lost 10 pounds.
I couldn't help but ask, "Are you okay? Do you have plenty to eat?" And she didn't answer. She looked at the elders.
Catherine Grove chose not to return home that day, and she's remained in Wells since. Her parents believe the group uses sleep deprivation to brainwash members, which the group's leaders deny.
As for the latest on the Catherine Grove controversy, she was spotted this past weekend at Millard's Crossing, a public park in Nacogdoches, where she participated in a wedding for a fellow Church of Wells member. Her father, Andy Grove, was there. He told KETK he tried to speak to his daughter, but he was kicked off the site by church members. Mr. Grove says that he only got a chance to see his daughter for a brief second from a distance.
Catherine's parents, Andy and Patty, claim that over the years, Catherine has tried to escape 4 different times. They claim the Church of Wells is a cult. They say that they have brainwashed their once vibrant daughter and left her a scared and lifeless zombie.
Catherine went missing 4.5 years ago.
Catherine was 26. She was in nursing school. We were certain she must be hanging out with some friends for the holiday weekend.
Catherine called. She said, I'm in Wells, Texas. And she said, I'm with a group of friends. We got to Wells.
We saw a pickup with a group of teenagers. They said, oh my, you're looking for your daughter. And I said, how do you know? They said, many families come to Wells looking for their kids. You need to find her today or she will disappear. And they pointed down the street. She said, likely Catherine is in that house. So we knocked on the door, and 2 young men in their 20s came out and stood in front of us. They said, we have evidence, Mr. Grove, that you've tried to murder your daughter. Hattie and I are thinking, this is the craziest conversation I've ever had. It was over 7 hours before they agreed to allow us to go see Catherine.
She said, they have convinced me that I'm not saved.
I started wondering, could Catherine be brainwashed?
I started Googling Wells, and it directed me to 2 different cult forums. I started going, oh dear, what is this? Who are these people? We spoke to several of the other members. When we would bring up their family members, their eyes would begin shaking and vibrating like a zombie stare. We went back to the same house, and Catherine opened the door. She immediately went into the same stare and vibrating eyes that I had witnessed, and she stared straight through me. And then she ran, turned, I said, Andy, something's terribly wrong. Next time we had any contact with Catherine, she called. She actually sounded drugged, and she was yelling, this is not Catherine.
You want to talk to Catherine? She's dead. What do you mean Catherine's dead?
You're standing. We're outside.
I've been crucified with Christ.
She said, I'm in heaven. And then she says, Mom, I'm Jesus.
Well, I'm glad to meet y'all. I'm sorry that you're having to deal with all of this. This is completely out of character for your daughter, correct?
Correct.
Very much so.
How do you suppose these people got her to participate in this to begin with? How do you think they got her to even start a dialogue with them?
Because Catherine loves people. Catherine loves God. And she wanted to use her life to have an impact for God. She loved people. And Catherine wanted to spend her life helping people.
Mm-hmm. And you think they've preyed upon that love of God and that desire, and they've distorted that and gotten her to believe that this is the only way to do that?
Yes.
When you saw her in the park at this wedding, did you approach her?
No, I asked if I might have a word with Catherine, and they said that was not possible.
But the police officers told Andy something very important.
She's saying she's there of her own free will. I've been looking at some of the video of your daughter. Some of this looks very much like a prisoner of war video.
One of the officers had extensive experience with special forces. He told me that Catherine's entire body was indicating just the opposite of every word that she was saying.
And later, Has Catherine had a child?
Yes, she has a little boy. I believe she's also pregnant now.
Have you met the grandchild?
No, we're not allowed to see or talk to Catherine. But the police officers told Andy something very important.
What was that?
Well, they said that they had one of the officers said that he had extensive experience with special forces. And after interviewing Catherine, they asked her if she wanted to see her father. And she indicated no. But he said that he told me, the police officer told me that he was a specialist in body language, that Catherine's entire body was indicating non-verbally just the opposite of every word that she was saying.
Well, you know, it's very interesting that you say that, because I am very trained in the same regard, and I've been looking at some of the video of your daughter, and I have to tell you that my comment to my staff is that some of this looks very much like a prisoner of war video to me, where you see sometimes Americans that are being held hostage, and you have what we call pushed verbalizations, where in normal conversation there's a flow where one word triggers the next word, and that's how you have flow in a dialogue. When you're not really expressing your own feelings and your own thoughts, that doesn't happen, and so you have to operate on each word individually, and so it becomes pushed. And when you hear her talking, she's having to pull up each word, and it's not that she doesn't think she's doing it voluntarily, but it doesn't flow. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened when someone has surrendered their will and they're not talking in a way that comes from their own thoughts, their own feelings, their own heart. And we'll take a look at that. The church posted this video of Catherine explaining that she's right where she wants to be.
I want to be here at the church. It's just that this situation between my parents and I has caused a lot of trouble, and they've made up all kinds of accusations that aren't true against the church. The church is completely innocent of the accusations of forcing me to do things against my will, or like any physical abuse, or some of those things that were named were like, I don't even want to speak of them. I'm safe and sound here.
I don't know these people. These are allegations. She's saying, the words are saying she's there of her own free will. You know her better than anyone else. Coming up, Catherine's parents say they believe their daughter is desperate to escape, get out of this life with the Church of Wells, but that she can't break free. You may be wondering, you know, there aren't fences. She's not chained up. Is she really a prisoner? Well, I'll tell you what, you can certainly be a prisoner without fences, without chains, without locks. When we come back, we're going to show you a police video from one of these alleged attempts to get away. We'll be right back.
We've heard 911 calls.
I need somebody to pick me up.
We've seen body cam footage.
I'm just trying to get home.
We know that our daughter has tried to escape at least 4 times.
And later,
I feel that there's trigger words. Something sets them off, kind of like a zombie state.
I witnessed it twice, of my own daughter and then of another young man.
It's like you flip a switch. You see their eyes glaze over.
Well, since her disappearance, Catherine returned home just one time, but she didn't stay and went back to the Church of Wells. Take a look.
In April of 2015, I received a call that Catherine had escaped the Church of Wells. When I came into the sheriff's office, Catherine looked extremely thin. She wouldn't say anything when I talked to her. She just looked at me. When the sheriff asked Catherine, would you like to leave right now and go home to see your mother and father? Catherine nodded her head yes.
We know that Catherine, our daughter, has tried to escape at least 4 times. We've heard 911 calls.
Warren Sheriff's Office. I need somebody to pick me up. Where are you? I-69.
We've seen body cam footage.
I'm just trying to get help from her to get a ride somewhere.
I feel horrified that my daughter is trying to leave this someplace with strangers. I feel helpless that I can't help her.
Well, in 2016, Catherine walked almost 10 miles to a woman's home who called 911. And here's the body cam video from when the police arrived.
Hello. So what's going on?
She just came over here to ask her.
Needing a ride?
But we can't give her a ride because we don't know her.
Right.
She honestly doesn't know where she wants to go. So that's why we decided to call you.
Okay. Where are you trying to, do you know where you're trying to get to? Or a general area?
I'm just trying to get help from her to get a ride somewhere. And
where to? Where are you trying to get to? Are you from Texas? Where are you from?
She said she's
From Wales?
I don't understand this.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
If you want to ride somewhere, I can give you a ride. You don't? Okay. Well, it's your choice. I can't make you go. I'm not here to, you're not in any trouble. They didn't call because you're in trouble or nothing. They're not comfortable giving somebody a ride that they don't know, and we can do that if you need to go somewhere. Be careful.
Okay, do you know what happened at that point?
We don't know. We don't know how somehow, the only thing we know is a man went and got the 911 calls and the body cam footage, and there was a photo of Catherine that was posted on Instagram of her with the black eye. And he took this photo over back to Wells, to where he knew Catherine's husband lived. And Catherine's husband and another man were in an argument with some local people there. And he showed them the photo. And one of the women, the man that had the photo of Catherine with the black eye, he had his audio recording on and his video camera on. And 2 of the women spoke up and said, "We know who picked Catherine Grove up. And they whored Catherine to get her pregnant." The Church of Wells did, and we know that she was trying to get to San Augustine, but I don't know who those women are.
And we did do a bit of research, and there is a battered women's shelter in St. Augustine. So that would make sense that Catherine would be trying to make her way there.
This is one of the houses right here, the cult members. It's where Catherine Grove and her husband live. It's one of the wives. She's got behind the vehicle there where she'd be hard to see, hiding. They're really pretty reclusive in a lot of ways.
Have you seen Catherine?
I have.
Closed captioning provided by Well, I want to add someone to the conversation, and this is someone that lives in Wells. It's a pastor that lives really on the edge of the property there, and this is Pastor Maddox, and he claims that he has witnessed really bizarre cult-like activity for years, and he says that he has dedicated his life to helping members who want to leave escape from the Church of Wells. Take a look.
We're in Wells, Texas. The little rough wood building right there used to be a dog kennel that they converted into a house. This is one of the houses right here, the cult members. It's where Catherine Grove and her husband live. There's been a lot of interaction myself with people here on this road with the Church of Wells where I've been chastised and rebuked by them. I'm on public property. They've said not to be walking past their houses, that they may have to take legal action if I continue to walk past their house. There's one of the wives. She's got behind the vehicle there where she'd be hard to see, hiding. Well, as we go by and they see the cameras, they tend to kind of scurry into their homes, so they'll all go into hiding. They don't interact well with the people of the community, and they're really pretty reclusive in a lot of ways.
Pastor Jim, thank you so much for joining us. What in the world is going on over there, in your opinion?
As Jordan said earlier, it's a cult doing cult things. And the longer it goes on, the more obvious it is what's taking place there. We've seen it go from really change from, in the beginning, I called them a bunch of boys trying to do a man's job, just thought that they were really confused as far as doctrinally and things. And we watched them really move and morph into really a machine, so to speak.
And you live very close to their property, right?
I do, and I have a church that actually joins their property, and then we have an automotive shop that joins another piece of property where they have a shed.
And you've talked to these elders.
Oh, yes.
And have you had a civil conversation with them?
Very few.
If they're men of God and you are as well, what is it, where's the breakdown come from?
Well, usually whenever I begin to question their motives in a particular thing or how they've handled people, it's not so much doctrinally. We've not had a lot of doctrinal discussions, a few, but that's not been where the problem's been. The problem has been is how they handle people and what they're doing and manipulating in people's lives and their minds.
What have you seen them do that you consider manipulative?
Well, certainly in the way they control their women. For one, the wives are not allowed to walk beside the husbands. You see them walking around town a lot. They walk, 10, 12 feet behind them. And the wives do most all of the work around the homes. The husbands, they do work, but they go out and do it. And so I've seen them as far as whenever you interact with them, they're not allowed, even the other men, the elder that's in the group, if there's a group of 3 or 4 of them, he's the only one that speaks, and the others say nothing, a lot of times only looking at the ground.
And did you happen to see Jordan when he was there?
I did not.
Okay, and have you seen Catherine?
I have.
And when was the last time you saw her?
Just a few days ago I saw her.
And what did you see? What was she doing?
She was raking the yard in a house that her and her husband are just moving into. And so she was out cleaning up outside some.
And this husband, have you met him? Have you talked to him?
I have.
And he's a member of the church?
Yes, he is.
Did she meet him there, as far as you know?
Yes.
All right. And all of these women that walk behind their husbands, they seem to all have 4 or 5 children.
Yeah, or more.
Or more. Has Catherine had a child with this husband?
Yes, she has a little boy.
Were you all aware of this?
Yes.
We've seen pictures.
We've seen pictures.
And is it just the one?
I believe she's also pregnant now. She appears to be.
Okay. Did y'all know she was pregnant?
Only from someone sending us a picture in Wells.
Okay. Have you met the grandchild?
No, we're not allowed to see or talk to Catherine. The last time I talked to her husband, he told me that I had to surrender and wave a white flag, and that he chastises Catherine and she needs more chastising and humbling, and that she can't speak well, and that she's lost her abilities to speak.
I've been told by several people that have gotten out, they would spend 20, 30, 40 days without food. They would keep them up for 3 or 4 days at a time. At night, you could hear them yelling at whoever they had in the shed.
She said in a very slow voice that she didn't want to see me by myself.
Closed captioning provided by... I've got a side-by-side pictures of Catherine. We've got pictures of her before and pictures of her now. And It just certainly looks very, very different. And she was, what was her educational level?
She was studying Spanish in nursing school. She was in a 4-year program at Baptist Health, and also she was just shy of graduating, 4 hours shy of getting her degree in Spanish from University of Arkansas at Little Rock.
She was scholarship to the university, academic scholarship, National Honor Society.
She was had been in all advanced placement classes.
Basically a straight A student her entire life.
She was an editor for her high school newspaper. She was in choir. She was in drama. She played forward on one of the best competitive soccer teams in Northwest Arkansas, the Arkansas Comets.
But now she's lost her ability to speak.
I have him recorded twice telling me this, that my daughter is like Moses in the wilderness, how Moses lost his ability to speak. Catherine has lost her abilities to speak, and this is why she can't speak to me.
And tell me about this shed, Pastor. There's a shed that you say they go in?
Long periods of time, yes, sir. It's
without food, no bathroom. What's the story?
It's a metal shed that's, I'm guessing it to be probably a 10 by 12, something like that. Just like a storage shed. And they have it right behind one of the houses, and they used that for a long time in their, what they called their conversion environment, and where they would take them in. In the beginning, they did a lot of what they called prayer and fasting, and so they would spend 20, 30, 40 days without food, just only drinking water. And they would keep them up for 3 and 4 days at a time without sleep, and a group of men in their tag team preaching to them 24/7. And then after a few days, they would allow them to lay down, sleep for a little bit, maybe give them a bite or two of food, but then get them right back up and go right back at it again.
And how do you know that's going on?
Well, I've been told by several people that have gotten out, not to mention because of the proximity of where we are, and it's a small town, there's not city traffic and all that. We don't even have a red light in our town. At night, you could hear them in there yelling at whoever they had in the shed.
Now, you've talked about people that have gotten out and stayed out. Tell me what you mean by that.
I feel that there's trigger words, that when you're talking to these people, something sets them off, whether you get too close into their boundaries or whatever it may be. But when you hit that spot, it's like someone that's been, like a prisoner of war that's been brainwashed, or someone from the occult where they begin to go into shutdown mode. You see it's like you flip a switch. You see their eyes glaze over. You see their total demeanor changes, that it's like you're no longer talking to a person, but more kind of like a zombie state.
I witnessed it twice.
You've seen the eyes vibrating?
Of my own daughter, and then of another young man at the Texaco, when I asked him if his mother knew that he was there, and he started staring straight ahead and like he couldn't see me, and then his eyes started vibrating back and forth, and I had never seen anything like that before. And then the next morning, she came to the door, and I said, "Catherine, I just want to see you, honey." And she went into the same stare as the man did the night before, where she just stared straight ahead and like she couldn't see me. And then her eyes started shaking, vibrating back and forth, and she said in a very stuttered, broken, slow voice that she didn't want to see me by myself, but she said it in this very slow voice where there was like time and space between every word, about 2 or 3 seconds. And then she turned and ran, and it so frightened me that the phenomenon that I had seen the night before with the young man, then my daughter did it, and I had never seen her do anything like that in my life.
The night that he came home, he had a glaze over his eyes. You know, I'm hugging him, crying, and I'm like, "You're here, Jordan, but where are you?" There was something about him that wasn't right.
Do you think there was sleep deprivation with you?
Yes. It was funny because even after I had mentioned that typically I'm not like crack of dawn kind of person, they woke me up at the crack of dawn the next day.
The night that he came home, he had a glaze over his eyes, and I looked at him and I'm like, you know, I'm hugging him, crying, and I'm like, you're here, Jordan, but where are you? I'm looking in his eyes, and I knew there was something about him that wasn't right, that it wasn't, you know, all just brainwashing. There was something chemically making him do strange things. His fingers were like twitching, and his toes
were curling, and at one point, like, we're trying to talk to him, and like he kind of like made his eyes just like roll back in his head, and like, I mean, he was, and it took about 3 days for like, because he was just bizarre even after we got him home. But then probably after about 3 days, he was, I would say back to normal, back to Jordan, you know, back to, you know, my brother.
I want to take a look at some of the research that has told us that there are typical traits of a cult leader versus the accusations against the Church of Wells. We put together a list to compare these so you can kind of see what's going on. And in terms of typical traits, they isolate their members from contact with their family and the outside world. In the Church of Wells, Jordan and Catherine unable to contact their family, and they do everything they can to alienate them from their family. And of course, these are reports that they've given, and they're accusations that you guys make, that you guys are making, and they haven't admitted to this. They move members house to house. Typical traits: devalue others as being inferior, incapable, not worthy. Church of Wells, it's alleged that they convince members that they're not saved, that they're inferior in some way. Typical traits: doesn't think anything wrong with themselves. Leader sees themselves as blessed. Church of Wells, only the elders know who is saved because they are saved and they know the true gospel. Then typical trait, they tend to ignore the needs of others, biological, physical, emotional, financial. Church of Wells, the members stay in a shed for days without food or bathroom. This is what you say you have seen. Catherine looks starved. Told can't smile, can't be happy. Jordan kept up past midnight, gotten up before sunup. Another typical trait, they demand blind, unquestioned obedience. Church of Wells, Catherine told parents must only listen to the elders. Elders spoke for Catherine and Jordan. I mean, it just goes on, and you can see the parallels between what we see with typical cults and what is alleged to be going on at the Church of Wells. And I can tell you, and I've said this before, if I was allowed to control one thing, to take control of someone's thinking and motivations, emotions, and sanity, the one thing I would want control of is sleep. Because if you can keep somebody awake long enough, and you can control their sleep, whether they can sleep or whether they can't, you can take anyone to the edge of sanity and beyond. Because the brain begins to change, the fatigue begins to set in, and that is one way to break anyone down because of the brain chemistries begin to change. So, and when you left, they contacted you when you were at lunch, said you left your backpack there, you need to come back and get it, right?
They attempted to get a hold of my family because my family's numbers were the only ones they had.
Right.
They really wanted mine, and it's to my understanding that they still harass anyone who has gotten out.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I've got some very specific advice for you guys to consider. We'll be right back. Closed captioning provided by... I'm very sorry that you're having to deal with what you're having to deal with, and I can tell you that she has made an attempt to escape, you believe, 4 times.
Yes, sir.
That predicts that it's going to happen again, right? I mean, it's happened once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. So you have to believe that a 5th time is either going to happen, or that you can do something to trigger a 5th time, or that if in fact this is a cult, that they are in fact going to cross a line, something is going to happen, somebody's going to get busted, something's going to happen. And my advice to you is the same thing that I would say to someone that was going to do an intervention. If someone was on drugs or alcohol, one of the biggest mistakes people make is they go in with the plan to stop what's happening, but they don't have a plan of what to do instead. You have to have a solution in hand. Understand, when you say break a habit, that's a misnomer. We don't break habits. We replace one set of thoughts and behaviors with a new set of thoughts and behaviors that are hopefully incompatible with these that we don't want. And brainwashing, whatever label you want to put on it, she has, in your opinion, been subject to mind control, where she has gotten into a pattern of thinking a certain way, behaving a certain way, believing a certain way. And if you take that away from her at this point, there will be a void. There will be a vacuum there that will leave her spinning and lost, and she won't know what to put in its place. She said, well, she's had years of things in its place. No, there will now be a void. So if and when this opportunity presents itself, and it will, you've got to not only be willing to go pick her up, you've got to have a plan in place of exactly what you're going to do to give her a soft place to fall and to overcome these thoughts, these values, these beliefs that she has been living with something that's more constructive. And it's going to be a process. And there is a process for doing this, and we want to help you get that in place.
Thank you.
She came home and she stayed there a while and she went back.
We didn't have a plan.
You didn't have a plan. You didn't know. You do the best you can with what you know at the time. You thought, we need our daughter back here and we're just going to love her up and she's going to be back where she needs to be. It takes more than that.
She needs protection. When she made that final escape, the leaders somehow found her location.
He followed her to our home.
And I'm not going to say a whole lot about what it is right now, because I don't want them to have access to this plan, because if they don't know, they don't know. Okay? They're going to find this a very steep hill to climb and a very thick wall to penetrate, trust me. A big part of this is forgiving herself for making some bad choices and getting where she has been. And I know even for the few days that you've gone through, you've had to be thinking, what in the world was I thinking? And I can't be that dumb. But 20/20 hindsight, you look back and you go, wow, I just ran past red flags. But they're easy to see now.
Right.
But at the time, you're searching for answers with nothing but goodness in your heart. So you've got to have a plan. And it's more than just getting them back and loving them. You've got to start replacing these bad, destructive habits, thoughts, and feelings with new, constructive values, thoughts, and feelings. And there's a way to do that so she doesn't get overwhelmed and doesn't feel like she's betraying herself. And we'll help you put that in place. Okay? All right, fair enough.
Awesome.
All right. I want to thank all of my guests for sharing their stories here today. I hope that the Groves can one day reestablish a relationship with their daughter. I just know that that's going to happen. I want to point out again that the Church of Wells is not here to defend themselves. They deny any and all accusations against them. We reached out to them. We did not receive a response back. We did speak to local police who did not want to give us a statement, but they did say, quote, "We haven't had any problems with the Church of Wells in years." For more information, go to drphil.com, and if you've got information about this, please post it up. People want to know. Thanks for watching. Pastor, thank you.